Hi dear students, how are you? I hope all of you are fine. Are you ready for the session? Yes. Okay, let's start the next topic. In the last few sessions, we were learning about different kingdoms according to R.H. Whitaker and his 5-kingdom classification system. So we learned about Kingdom Monera, Protista and Fungi. As I told you, Kingdom Plantae and Animalia will be discussed in detail in the next 2 chapters. So in this chapter, a brief part of the same is given, as it is coming under 5-kingdom classification system. So let us see that what's mentioned here. Next topic, Kingdom Plantae. Kingdom Plantae includes all eukaryotic chlorophyll containing organisms, commonly called plants. So what does Kingdom Plantae include? It includes all eukaryotic chlorophyll containing organisms, and they are commonly known as what? Plants. A few members are partially heterotrophic, such as the insectivorous plants or parasites. So in Kingdom Plantae also, what are present? Some members are there and they are partially heterotrophic. We are not telling them as totally heterotrophic. They are preparing the food by themselves only there. But heterotrophic in the sense how it is coming there. Insectivorous plants. Venus flytrap, like that plants are there. They are feeding insects. And you know that why they are taking these insects? For rectifying the nitrogen deficiency in the plant body, which is needed for their growth and development. To fulfill the need, they are having the insects. They are taking the insects. Insectivorous. Vorous means eating. Insect eating plants. That is known as insectivorous plants. Then parasites. For example, Loranthus. It's a partial parasite. Why? Because it is taking the help of the host for just habitat. They are able to prepare the food by themselves. So like that, few members of plant kingdom are partially heterotrophic, such as insectivorous plants or parasites. Bladderwort and Venus flytrap are examples of insectivorous plants. And Cuscuta is a parasite. Here this Cuscuta, Loranthus I told it's a partial parasite. But Cuscuta coming under plant kingdom, it's a complete parasite or it's a total parasite. Because it's like a thread structure is there. It's growing on the branches of the trees and totally covering the plant and completely taking the nutrition from that. And slowly and gradually the host body is getting dried. So it's known as total parasite. For the habitat also, for staying also, and for nutrition also, they are totally depending on the host. So that example is Cuscuta. The plant cells have a eukaryotic structure with a prominent chloroplast and cell wall mainly made up of cellulose. The plant cells have a eukaryotic structure. That means you have to understand they are having true nucleus, well developed nucleus and membrane bound organelles. And even they are having chloroplast. And cell wall is there. That cell wall is mainly made up of what? Cellulose. You will study the eukaryotic cell structure in detail in chapter 8. Plantae includes algae, bryophytes, pteridophytes, gymnosperms and angiosperms. As I told you, in chapter 3, plant kingdom, we will learn about each of these in detail. Which one? Algae, bryophytes, pteridophytes, gymnosperms and angiosperms. So in this paragraph, what we are explaining here, kingdom Plantae includes all eukaryotic chlorophyll containing organisms commonly called plants. Few members partially heterotrophic such as insectivorous plants and parasite we told. Examples we told that bladderwort and Venus flytrap. In parasites we told cuscuta as an example. And the cells have eukaryotic structure and prominent chloroplasts they are having, and cell wall is there which is mainly made up of cellulose we discussed. Life cycle of plants has two distinct phases. This is a very important point you have to understand that whether it is an alga and if it is bryophyte, pteridophyte, gymnosperm or angiosperms, but one thing you have to understand that to complete the life cycle, they have to alternate two phases, that is haploid gametophytic phase and diploid sporophytic phase. Duration of both can differ, but they have to cover both the phases, haploid gametophytic phase and diploid sporophytic phase. Duration will be different. Sometimes haploid stage will be more, sometimes diploid stage will be more, sometimes both equally there. But anyhow, they have to cover both the phases. So, life cycle of plant has two distinct phases, the diploid sporophytic phase and the haploid gametophytic phase that alternate with each other. The lengths of the haploid and diploid phases and whether these phases are free living or dependent on others vary among different groups in plants. Means this haploid phase is depending the diploid phase, that is the gametophytic phase is depending on the sporophytic phase. Yeah, sporophytic phase is depending on the gametophytic phase. Yeah, both of them are living separately or not, if they are independent or not. All these differs in different organisms there. But anyhow, one thing is sure, they have to go through these two phases during the life cycle. Which are the two phases? Haploid gametophytic phase and the diploid sporophytic phase. They alternate with each other. And this phenomenon is called alternation of generation. And you will study further details of this kingdom in chapter 3. So, alternation of generation in that they have to pass through both the phases. According to that, mainly three are coming there. Three types are there. Haplontic life cycle pattern is there, diplontic life cycle pattern is there, haplodiplontic life cycle pattern is there, and this haplodiplontic is also known as intermediate stage. Anyhow, regarding this topic, we will learn in third chapter only in detail. So now we are not going to that part. So this is just an introductory part of kingdom Plantae. What we are going to learn in that much only discussed here. As the same, the case of kingdom Animalia, let us see. This kingdom is characterized by heterotrophic eukaryotic organisms. Regarding which one? Heterotrophic. They are heterotrophs. They are depending on others, plants for food. Eukaryotic organisms, well-developed nucleus and membrane-bound organelles are there. And multicellular, made up of more than one cell. And they are not having cell wall. So, see the first sentence, first point. Kingdom Animalia. So, animal kingdom is characterized by heterotrophic eukaryotic organisms that are multicellular and their cells lack cell walls. They directly or indirectly depend on plants for food. They directly or indirectly depend on plants for food. They digest their food in an internal cavity and store food reserves as glycogen or fat. See dear students, what we are saying here, they digest their food in an internal cavity. We are having the complete digestive system. So, and store food reserves, and even storing the food reserves. And in which form? Either in the form of glycogen or in the form of fat. Their mode of nutrition is holozoic. Holozoic means by ingestion of food, not injection. What is that? Ingestion. Ingestion means taking in of food. You would have learned about digestion. And now, whatever the points, whatever the steps coming, whatever the steps coming there, we are taking in food. Ingestion, digestion, absorption, assimilation and egestion. That means starts with ingestion, taking in food. Egestion with it ends. Egestion means leaving out, removing the waste material. So like that, the digestion process involves how many steps? Ingestion, digestion, absorption, assimilation and egestion. You would have learned about this. But anyhow, that also you will learn in human physiology. Our chapter is there, digestion and absorption. There you will learn in detail there. Okay, we are not coming to that part now. But here just you have to understand that the mode of nutrition in kingdom Animalia, that is holozoic, by ingestion of food, by taking in of food. They follow a definite growth pattern and grow into adults that have a definite shape and size. There is a definite growth pattern from embryo to adult stage. There is a growing pattern is there, and they reach to the adult stage and have a definite shape and size. Higher forms show elaborate sensory and neuromotor mechanism, means highly evolved systems are there. Digestive system, respiratory system, reproductive system. They are having well developed neural and control coordination. Neural control and coordination system is there. That means nervous system is there. That means for each and everything. That means a particular system, well developed system, highly evolved system is there. Most of them are capable of locomotion. Most of them are capable of locomotion. Locomotion means what? Locomotion is the movement. So, one more chapter when you are going to learn in human physiology, one chapter itself is coming as locomotion and movement. When we are talking about locomotion, we are saying as the meaning movement only there. So, what is the difference between locomotion and movement? Actually, locomotion, it's a movement only there, but it is from one place to another in search of food, shelter, mating like that. So, we can call it as locomotion. So, most of them are capable of locomotion. And the sexual reproduction is by copulation. That means mating of male and female followed by embryological development. You know that when the mating is happening, that means a male and female gamete fusing there, and because of that the zygote is forming, then the zygote develops as embryo, and then after the growth is coming there and the development is occurring there. Salient features of various phyla are described in chapter 4. Before going to that topic, once again the first paragraph we can see. This kingdom, animal kingdom, is characterized by heterotrophic eukaryotic organisms that are multicellular and their cells lack cell walls. They directly or indirectly depend on plants for food. They digest their food in an internal cavity and store food reserves as glycogen or fat. As you know that the digestive system starts with mouth, then pharynx, esophagus, stomach, large intestine, small intestine and large intestine, then rectum and anus. So they follow a definite growth pattern and grow into adults that have a definite shape and size. Higher forms show elaborate sensory and neuromotor mechanism. Most of them are capable of locomotion. The sexual reproduction is by copulation of male and female followed by embryological development. Salient features of various phyla are described in chapter 4. So we told that salient features of various phyla are described in chapter 4. Salient features, that means salient characteristics of different phyla. Phyla is the plural of phylum. Which are the phylum you learnt? In 9th standard you would have learnt about that. Am I right? Yes. Which were the phyla you learnt there? Phylum Porifera, Phylum Coelenterata, Phylum, then what? Porifera, Ctenophora, Coelenterata, Platyhelminthes, Aschelminthes, Annelids, Arthropods, mollusks, echinoderms and chordates. These many phyla you would have learnt in 9th standard, but not in depth, to a certain extent. Some of the characteristics you would have learnt in 9th. But in our 11th standard, in 4th chapter, when we have to learn regarding animal kingdom, so each and every phylum we have to learn in detail. That time many questions can be asked related to the topics you have learnt in 9th standard. That's why I told you that you have to keep the books. If you are not having, you have to collect and just have a look on that whenever we are going to take that chapter. So please be ready to give the answers related to the topics which we are going to learn in that chapter. Okay, let us see. Anyhow, that we are going to learn in 4th chapter only then. Now, the last topic of this chapter, that is the 2nd chapter, biological classification, we are going to learn, that is viruses, viroids and lichens. According to R.H. Whittaker's Five Kingdom classification, any of the classification system, they are not at all included. So as a separate topic we are learning regarding the viruses, viroids and lichens. Our Five Kingdom classification with Animalia we have completed. Now what is explained regarding this virus, viroid, lichen? Let's see. In the Five Kingdom classification of Whittaker, there is no mention of some acellular organisms like viruses and viroids and lichens. These are briefly introduced here. We are calling them as acellular, means absence of cell is there. Such type of organisms they are. Till now we were telling about unicellular, multicellular, but here we are calling them as acellular organisms. All of us who have suffered the ill effects of common cold or flu know what effects viruses can have on us, even if we do not associate it with our condition. So dear students, you know that the effect, the impact of viruses very clearly nowadays, because we are just facing the problem because of that virus only there. That is the corona, the COVID-19 effect, because of which virus? Coronavirus. It's also a virus. How much critical, how much dangerous that microscopic organism in our day-to-day life, now we are realizing that. Even simple flu is coming, we are suffering a lot. Nausea, stomachache, even headache, cold, everything is coming there. So here now what we are saying, that viruses did not find a place in classification since they are not truly living. We are classifying the organisms that are living. So our chapter itself, whatever topic we have learned about, first of all, our first topic itself was what is living. Then the classification we learned. So here viruses did not find a place in classification since they are not truly living. So we are not keeping them in any of the category. The reason is that they are not truly living. We are classifying the organisms whomsoever living. That's why it's known as biological classification. But this creature, it's not living. So we cannot keep them under any of the category. If we understand living as those organisms that have a cell structure, if that criteria we are keeping into consideration for classifying that, if they are having a cell structure, In that case, these organisms are acellular. These organisms are not truly living, so we cannot keep them in any of the category according to biological classification. The viruses are non-cellular organisms. That only I told acellular in the beginning. So the viruses are non-cellular organisms, or we can call it as acellular organisms, that are characterized by having an inert means inactive crystalline structure outside the living cell. So if you are telling about the structure of a virus, they are having a crystalline structure. Whenever they are outside the living cell, they are characterized by having an inactive inert crystalline structure. Once they enter the host, or once they enter or infect a cell, they take over the machinery of the host cell to replicate, to divide themselves, to multiply themselves, and by that they are killing the host even. So in that case, would you call viruses as a living or non-living? You just imagine that. Until and unless if the virus is not entering a host cell, we are calling them as non-living. Or we told that they are not truly living. But once they infect a cell, what they are doing? They take over. They take over the complete machinery. The control is in them then, of the host cell to replicate themselves, and by that they are killing the host. So what we can call them? Because till when they are out of the host cell, they are not truly living. But once they enter the host cell, they are taking the complete machinery of the host cell and replicating, and through that they are killing the host. So in that case, we cannot call them as living or non-living. The name virus, that means venom or poisonous fluid, was given by Pasteur. You would have heard about Louis Pasteur. So this name virus was given by Pasteur. And what is the meaning of the word? The name virus, that means venom or poisonous fluid. It's a very important point, beta. You have to underline that, you have to learn it, because in MCQs, in your NEET exams, it can be asked, who coined the term virus? So the name virus, that means venom or poisonous fluid, was given by whom? Pasteur. D.J. Ivanovsky in 1892 recognized certain microbes as causal organism of the mosaic disease of tobacco. In the figure 2.6, it's given. You can see the structure. In the year 1892, scientist D.J. Ivanovsky recognized certain microbes, certain microorganism as causative organism of the mosaic disease of tobacco. In the tobacco plant, a disease, that disease name is tobacco disease, tobacco mosaic. And these were found to be smaller than bacteria. And the causative organism was found out that they were smaller than bacteria. And how they came to know that they are smaller than bacteria? Because they passed through bacteria-proof filters. And these causative organism, which causes tobacco mosaic disease, they were passed through bacteria-proof filters. So in that case, we have to understand they are even smaller than bacteria. Now the next scientist, M.W. Bejerinek, in 1898, after 6 years, demonstrated that the extract of the infected plants of tobacco could cause infection in healthy plants, and called the fluid as Contagium vivum fluidum. That is, infectious living fluid. So first of all, D.J. Ivanovsky recognized certain microbes as causative organism of tobacco mosaic disease, and the first person or the first scientist who coined the term virus, that was by Pasteur. And after Ivanovsky, in 1898, another scientist, M.W. Bejerenek, demonstrated that the extract of the infected plants of tobacco could cause infection in healthy plants, and called, because of that the fluid is called as what? Contagium vivum fluidum, means infectious living fluid. Contagium vivum fluidum means infectious living fluid. Infectious disease you know, contagious disease you know, that means from one person to another, from infected person to healthy person, if it is spreading, so we are calling it as infectious. Now the another scientist, you can see that here M.W. Bejerenek, here we are saying W.M. Stanley. In 1935 showed that viruses could be crystallized, and the crystals consist largely of proteins. So he learned about the structure. So he found out that they could be crystallized, and the crystals consist largely of what? Proteins. They are inert outside their specific host cell. They are inactive outside the specific host cell, and viruses are obligate parasites. Viruses are obligate parasites. That means they are totally parasite, depending totally on the host. So regarding many scientists we discussed here. First of all, who coined the term? What is the meaning of the word virus? So the name virus, that means venom or poisonous fluid, was given by Pasteur. In 1892, D.J. Ivanovsky recognized certain microbes which causes the tobacco mosaic disease, and then he found out that they were smaller than bacteria because they were passing through the bacteria proof filter. And then the another scientist in 1898, M.W. Bejerenek, demonstrated that it can cause the disease, or it can be infectious for the healthy plants also. And because of that, the fluid's name given contagium vivum fluidum, infectious living fluid. Then in 1935, W.M. Stanley showed that viruses could be crystallized, and the crystals consist largely of proteins. Even they are inert outside their specific host cell. Viruses are obligate parasites. In addition to proteins, viruses also contain genetic material that could be either RNA or DNA. No virus contains, underline this point, it's very important point. No virus contains both RNA and DNA. Any one will be present as a genetic material, either RNA or DNA. Not a single virus contains both RNA and DNA. So in addition to proteins, viruses also contain genetic material that could be either RNA or DNA. A virus is a nucleoprotein, and the genetic material is infectious. A virus is a nucleoprotein, and the genetic material is infectious. In general, viruses that infect plants have single-stranded RNA. Dear students, very important point we are discussing here. Please underline that. First we told that viruses are nucleoproteins, and even they are having genetic material either RNA or DNA. In general, viruses that infect plants have single-stranded RNA, and viruses that infect animals have either single or double-stranded RNA or double-stranded DNA. Listen better here. You would have learned about double helical structure of DNA. Okay. So here what we are saying that in the case of viruses, which affect plants or which infect plants that have only single-stranded RNA. But in the case of viruses which affect animals or which infect animals have either single-stranded RNA or double-stranded RNA or double-stranded DNA. Bacterial viruses or bacteriophages. You would have learnt about that. Bacteriophages, or we can call it as bacterial viruses. What are they? Viruses that infect bacteria. So they are not only infecting plants or animals, even they are infecting which one also? Bacteria also. The viruses which infect bacteria are known as bacteriophages, or we can call it as bacterial viruses. They are usually double-stranded DNA viruses. So bacteriophages are double-stranded DNA viruses. Once again, bacteriophages or bacterial viruses are what? Usually double-stranded DNA viruses. The protein called capsid. It's very important point. Please underline. The protein called capsid. So what is the protein coat of virus known as? Capsid. And that itself is made up of small subunits called capsomeres. You see in this diagram, 2.6a tobacco mosaic virus TMV is shown. In that you can see RNA is there and capsid is there. What is capsid? The protein coat is known as capsid. And even this capsid is made up of what? Small subunits known as capsomeres. So what are the subunits of capsid known as? Capsomeres. They protect the nucleic acid. As we discussed, viruses are nucleoprotein and it contains genetic material either RNA or DNA. Whomsoever infecting plants are having single-stranded RNA. In fact, animals are having either single-stranded or double-stranded RNA or double-stranded DNA. The viruses which infect bacteria are known as bacteriophages are usually what? Double-stranded DNA viruses. And they are having a protein coat known as capsid. And capsid itself is made up of small subunits called capsomeres. And they protect the nucleic acid. These capsomeres are arranged in helical or polyhedral geometric forms. Listen, these capsomeres, these subunits of capsids are arranged in helical or polyhedral geometric forms. Viruses cause diseases like mumps, smallpox, herpes and influenza. So dear students, here we were discussing about the diseases caused by virus. So examples: mumps, smallpox, herpes and influenza. So you have to understand what is herpes. Actually, herpes is also called HSV, herpes simplex virus infection. A virus causing contagious sores, most often around the mouth or on the genitals. So it's a virus infected or viral infected disease. It's a contagious disease or contagious sores caused by HSV, herpes simplex virus. And next we are saying about AIDS. AIDS in humans is also caused by a virus. You are knowing about this disease and you would have learned about this a brief in your last 9th 10th standard. Anybody knows the full form? AIDS? Yes, acquired immunodeficiency syndrome. And it is caused by which virus? Yes, very good. HIV. What is the full form of the same? HIV, human immunodeficiency virus. Once again, human immunodeficiency virus.
This HIV causes AIDS and interferes with the body's ability to fight infections. And you know the full form itself is acquired immunodeficiency syndrome. Syndrome word means you have to understand a group of symptoms coming together. And body's immunity power is reduced. Because of that, at a time, many diseases are affecting on the body. Clear for you? Regarding herpes, AIDS, all these diseases are caused by viruses.
In plants, the symptoms can be mosaic formation. What do you mean by mosaic formation? Actually, now these tiles, marbles, everything came. Before that, floors, walls, their mosaic was doing. In mosaic, you can see at a time, different colors can be seen. Yellow, black, white, like that. So, in the case of mosaic formation means you can see that is a disease of the plant. Different color spots are coming there. That's why we calling that mosaic disease of tobacco plant. TMV, caused by virus, TMV, tobacco mosaic virus. So what we are seeing here, in plants the symptoms can be mosaic formation, leaf rolling. Instead of straight, it will start rolling and curling. So all these are the symptoms of disease caused by virus in plants. What are the symptoms? Mosaic formation, leaf rolling and curling, and even yellowing. Before maturation, the leaf starts yellowing. And vein clearing, that means lamina portion, it is straight because of the presence of vein and veinlets. Now here that portion is getting cleared, only vein and veins are getting cleared there, rest of the portions are just damaging there. And dwarfing, the plants are not growing as per the need. As per the normal case, how it is growing, like that it is not growing there. What is happening? Dwarfing is happening and standard growth. It growth getting standard. Dwarfism of the plant. Standard growth is coming there. So many symptoms are there in the case of viruses which affect plants. Which are they? In plants, the symptoms can be mosaic formation, leaf rolling and curling, yellowing and vein clearing, dwarfing and standard growth. So dear students, we were discussing about viruses, its structure, its genetic material, the diseases caused by them, the symptoms. I think it's clear for you. Now the next topic, as we discussed, that is viroids. Underline the first sentence, a very important question which can be asked in your NEET or even in your MCQ test there. In 1971, Theo Diner discovered a new infectious agent that was smaller than viruses and caused potato spindle tuber disease. So dear students, first we told that viruses are smaller than bacteria because they were able to pass through bacteria-proof filters. Now we are telling that even smaller than viruses, other creatures are there. They are known as viroids. And who discovered viroids at first? Theo Diner. In which year? 1971. What did he discover? In 1971, Theo Diner discovered a new infectious agent that was smaller than viruses and caused potato spindle tuber disease. Potato, an underground stem, the shape you know, but once it's affected by or infected by these viroids, it varying in its structure. And that disease is known as potato spindle tuber disease. It was found to be a free RNA. Why we are calling it as a free RNA? Because they are not having the protein caught. That's why we are calling them as free RNA. It lack the protein caught. What is a protein coat? Protective coat is known as what? Capsid. And what the subunits known as? Capsomeres. But in the case of viroids, they are found to be free RNA because it lack the protein coat that is found in viruses. Hence, the name given viroid absence of protein coat, smaller than viruses. So, they are known as viroid. The RNA of the viroid was of low molecular weight as compared to viruses. So, once again, this paragraph we can see regarding viroids. Viroids. In 1971, Theo Diner discovered a new infectious agent that was smaller than viruses and caused potato spindle tuber disease. It was found to be a free RNA. It lacked the protein coat that is found in viruses, hence the name viroid. The RNA of the viroid was of low molecular weight. Now the last topic, lichens. I think now you know what is lichen. It's an association of whom? Algae and fungi. Lichens are symbiotic associations. What is symbiotic association? If they mutually help, then we can call it as symbiotic association. Lichens are symbiotic associations, that is mutually useful association between algae and fungi. Algae getting benefit from fungi and fungi get benefit from algae. That's what we are calling as mutually useful association. The algal component is known as phycobiont and fungal component is known as mycobiont, which are autotrophic and heterotrophic respectively. That means it is an association between algae and fungi. And algae, the component is known as phycobiont. I already told you that phyco word connected to algae and myco word connected to fungi. So the algal component is known as phycobiont and the fungal component is known as mycobiont. And algal component phycobiont is autotrophic and the fungal component mycobiont is heterotrophic. Algae prepare food for fungi and fungi provide shelter and absorb mineral, nutrients and water for its partner. If algae has to prepare food, it is in need of water, minerals, etc. and that fungi absorbs and giving to them, and in turn algae provide food for fungi. And even fungi provide shelter to algae. So close is their association. So the relationship is so close that if one saw a lichen in nature, one would never imagine that they had two different organisms within them. So if you are getting a chance to see a lichen, we won't be able to separate them as an algal and fungal component. Such a close relationship they are having in between. Lichens are very good pollution indicators. How they are very good pollution indicators? They do not grow in polluted areas. So one thing you have to understand that if you have found lichen in somewhere or some area, some region, you can make it very sure that that area is very safe. That means wherever pollution, their lichens won't grow. But as a pollution indicator, we learned about algal bloom. In polluted water bodies, they are growing like that, we learnt. But in the case of lichens, what we are saying that it's a very good pollution indicator. That means they do not grow in polluted areas. So lichens wherever growing, that area will be safe, clean. So dear students, the topics clear for you regarding virus, viroids and lichens. What are lichens? They are symbiotic association. What is symbiotic association? Mutually useful association. And the association between whom it is there? Algae and fungi. What the algal component is known as? Phycobiont. How it is? Autotrophic. What the fungal component known as? Mycobiont. What about it? Heterotrophic. How they help each other? Algae prepare food for fungi and fungi provide shelter and absorb mineral nutrients and water for its partner. And lichens are very good pollution indicators because they do not grow in polluted areas. It's clear for you, beta? Okay. So now we are winding up the session with the summary of the chapter. What have we learned in this chapter? We can have a quick review of the same through the summary. Please listen. Biological classification. Biological classification of plants and animals was first proposed by Aristotle on the basis of simple morphological characters. Linnaeus later classified all living organisms into two kingdoms, Plantae and Animalia. Whittaker proposed an elaborate five-kingdom classification: Monera, Protista, Fungi, Plantae and Animalia. The main criteria of the five-kingdom classification were cell structure, body organization, mode of nutrition and reproduction, and phylogenetic relationships. In the five-kingdom classification, bacteria are included in kingdom Monera. Bacteria are cosmopolitan in distribution, means they are found everywhere. These organisms show the most extensive metabolic diversity. Bacteria may be autotrophic or heterotrophic in their mode of nutrition. Kingdom Protista includes all single-celled eukaryotes such as chrysophytes, dinoflagellates, euglenoids, slime molds, and protozoans. Protists have defined nucleus and other membrane-bound organelles. They reproduce both asexually and sexually. Members of kingdom Fungi show a great diversity in structures and habitat. Most fungi are saprophytic in their mode of nutrition. They show asexual and sexual reproduction. Phycomycetes, ascomycetes, basidiomycetes and deuteromycetes are the four classes under this kingdom. The Plantae includes all eukaryotic chlorophyll containing organisms. Algae, bryophytes, pteridophytes, gymnosperms and angiosperms are included in this group. The life cycle of plants exhibit alternation of generations, that is haploid gametophytic and diploid sporophytic generations. The heterotrophic eukaryotic multicellular organisms lacking cell wall are included in the kingdom Animalia. The mode of nutrition of these organisms is holozoic. They reproduce mostly by the sexual mode. Some acellular organisms like viruses and viroids as well as the lichens are not included in the five-kingdom system of classification. So dear students, with this, we are completing the chapter here. I have to tell you one thing, that in biology, when we are learning, you can come to know that different terminologies are coming there. Different scientific terms are coming there. It's not so easy to pronounce and it's not so easy to remember. But it's very important. So for that, you have to do the practice of writing also. If you are writing and learning, will be more better for you. You can remember the things. Again I am saying, please don't do mug up. Try to understand the concept, make it very clear, and be confident. Please revise the topics, read the textbook, prepare the notes, and we will be again in the next session with a new chapter, that is the plant kingdom. Till then, take care of yourself, stay safe, stay healthy, have a good day. Thank you so much.